So this is going to be the first episode of a series where I look back at some of the great managers and head coaches of the past and analyse some lessons that modern coaches can learn from their careers, specifically relating it to Manchester United and Ruben Amorim. And for this first episode we're going to be starting with Marcelo Lippi. In the pantheon of football's greatest managers, Marcelo Lippi is often overlooked. He doesn't have the cult personality of a Pep Guardiola, the tactical mystique of an Arrigo Sacchi, or the media magnetism of Jose Mourinho. Yet Lippi's career is a masterclass in adaptability, psychological acumen, and the art of winning when the odds are stacked against you. His methods are often dismissed as old school, but I would argue that many are in fact timeless, and modern coaches could learn a thing or two from the Italian maestro. But why in the modern day should we care about a man whose heyday was in the late 1990s and early 2000s? Well, it's because football, like life, is cyclical. The game's current obsession with data analytics, gegenpressing, and positional play has left little room for human element. The grit, the resilience, the sheer single-mindedness that Lippi's teams embodied. In an era where coaches are increasingly obsessed with systems, Lippi's approach could serve as a reminder that football is not just a game of patterns but also of people. So what can today's managers learn from Marcelo Lippi, specifically Ruben Amorim, and how can this be applied to Manchester United in 2025? But before I go any further, if you want any cheap current season or retro jerseys, go over to dragonjersey.com. I'll leave a link in the comment section and description. They've got a variety of different jerseys, and we'll have the 25-26 season jerseys when they do come out later on in the year. Out of all the jerseys, I do like this 1988 Borussia Dortmund one, as well as a 91-92 AC Milan home shirt as well. If you do want to get in touch with them and discuss any shirts, delivery times or things like that, they've got their WhatsApp and email on the site, but you can also follow their Instagram as well. So once again, I'll leave it linked in the description and the comment section in case you do want to check it out after this video. The power of pragmatism. Winning ugly is still winning. Marcelo Lippi's Juventus side of the mid-1990s was not always easy on the eye. They didn't dominate possession like Guardiola's Barcelona or press with ferocity like Klopp's Liverpool. However, what they did was win, often with the slimmest of margins. Lippi's teams were masters of the 1-0 victory, a scoreline that modern fans might deride as anti-football, but one that delivered trophies in abundance. Lippi understood football is not a beauty contest, it's a results business. His Juventus side was built on a solid defensive foundation, with players like Ciro Ferreira and Paulo Montero marshalling the back line. But it wasn't just about defence, it was about efficiency. Lippi's teams knew how to conserve energy, pick their moments and strike when it mattered most. Now in today's game where high pressing and relentless attacking are often seen as the only paths to success, Lippi's pragmatism offers a valuable counterpoint. Coaches like Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid have also embraced this philosophy, proving that you don't need to outplay your opponent in order to outscore them. Sometimes winning ugly is the smartest play. Flexibility over dogma, the art of adaptation. One of Lippi's greatest strengths was his ability to adapt, whether it was switching formations mid-game or reinventing a player's role. Lippi was never wedded to a single system. At Juventus he seamlessly transitioned from a 4-3-3 to a 3-5-2, depending on the opponent and the context of the match. And this sort of flexibility was on full display during Italy's 2006 World Cup triumph. Facing a stacked field that included Brazil, Argentina and Germany, Lippi's Italy was a chameleon. They could defend deep and hit on the counter, or they could dominate possession and dictate the tempo. Lippi's willingness to adapt his tactics to the situation at hand was a key factor in Italy's success. Now in the modern era where managers are often defined by their tactical philosophy, Lippi's adaptability could be seen as a breath of fresh air. Coaches like Thomas Tuchel have shown the value of tactical flexibility, but still too many often cling to their systems like rafts, even when it's clear that the raft is not going to survive the waves, which seemed to be the case for Ten Hag's Manchester United. See, what I like about Marcelo Lippi is that he reminds us that football is a game of infinite variables, and the best managers are those that can navigate them with ease. So just like Marcelo Lippi, I think Ruben Amorim and other head coaches need to be prepared to alter their tactical setup. Not entirely or permanently, but certainly against specific opponents, no matter who is in the team, because this idea that coaches just play exactly the same way every game because we don't change for the opposition is just some talksport pundit type of saying which actually makes no sense in reality. But let me give you a specific example. So let's say we're coming up against a side using a 4-3-3 on paper, setting up in a 3-3-2-3 shape in the build-up phase. Well, we all know that Amorim likes to press aggressively, and this usually means going man for man at the back with the opposition's front three, which enables you to go man for man higher up the pitch, pressing with 7 outfield players, rather than 6 if you were using a back 4 for example. However, against certain opposition we may face issues when pressing this aggressively, and one of those could be against a physically and athletically dominant centre forward. If the opposition are looking to isolate our central centre back against their striker, then what they can do is shift the ball to one of their centre backs and have the winger on that side drop deep to drag the wide centre back higher up on the flank, which in turn is going to open up space in behind in the channel for a long pass down the line. Now obviously in an ideal world you'd have a central centre-back who can defend in these type of situations, but if you are against a Gyökeres or an Osimhen, even some of the best centre-backs in world football are going to struggle to constantly deal with this type of direct ball throughout the game. If Amorim has Maguire, Euro and De Ligt as his central centre-back options, whilst De Ligt would probably be the best option in this type of duel, is it really wise to keep putting him in this sort of position against someone like Osimhen? Because if this happens 10 times in a game, even if De Ligt deals with it perfectly 7 out of those 10 times, just because of the skill set and the attributes of someone like Osimhen or Gyökeres, there are going to be times when he gets caught out, which could lead to a goal which changes the game. And now you may look at an individual mistake from someone like De Ligt against Osimhen and say, well, it's only an individual error, so it's not the manager's fault, it's not the system's fault, when in reality, the system is made up of the players. And in big one-off games, such as in the Premier League or in a Champions League or Europa League tie, you're going to have to make adaptations. If you don't, and one of your players makes a mistake in this type of situation, it isn't just an individual error. It's an error from the manager in terms of the match preparation tactically for that specific game. And so in this type of situation, taking inspiration from Marcelo Lippi, who had the tactical versatility to not just adapt to his players, but also the opposition as well, Amorim in this situation would be better off not pressing as aggressively high up the pitch, but instead keeping a 4v3 in the halfway line, so that even if the opposition's winger is able to draw his man higher up the flank, the right wing back in this example, then the central centre back isn't going to be left isolated in a 1v1, and now you have a 2v1 in order to deal with this threat, which just logically should give you a bit more security and prevent individual errors. So now we come on to the human element, managing egos and building trust. Lippi's man management skills were second to none. At Juventus, he managed a dressing room full of superstars, Zinedine Zidane, Alessandro Del Piero, Didier Deschamps, and he kept all of them pulling in the same direction. He did this by not imposing his will, but by earning their trust. One of Lippi's most underrated qualities was his ability to connect with his players on a personal level. He understood their strengths, their weaknesses, and their motivations. This allowed him to get the best out of them, even in the most high-pressure situations. Now in today's game where player power is at an all-time high, Lippi's approach to man management is more relevant than ever. Coaches like Carlo Ancelotti have succeeded by fostering a culture of mutual respect, but too many managers still rely on fear and authority to get their message across. And Lippi's example shows that trust and empathy can be just as important as tactics and training drills. But you've also got to factor in the importance of mentality and winning the psychological battle against your opponent. Lippi's teams were known for their mental toughness, whether it was grinding out a result in a hostile away stadium or holding their nerve in a penalty shootout. Lippi's players rarely faltered under pressure. This was no accident. Lippi placed a huge emphasis on psychology, both in terms of preparing his players for big moments and in outmanoeuvring his opponents. One of Lippi's favourite tactics was to use the media to his advantage. He would often downplay his team's chances in the press, deflecting pressure onto the opposition. At the same time, he would use his pre-match team talks to instill a sense of belief in his players and the team as a whole, reminding them of their strengths and their ability to overcome any challenge. Now in the modern age when mental health and performance psychology are finally getting the attention they deserve, Lippi's focus on the psychological side of the game is a timely reminder of his importance. And coaches like Jurgen Klopp have embraced this aspect of management, but there is still a tendency to focus on the physical and the tactical side of the game at the expense of the mental. But Lippi's success shows that winning the psychological battle is often the key to winning a war. But now we move on to another principle of Lippi's management, and that's the value of experience and building a balanced squad. See, Lippi was a master of squad building. His teams always had the right mix of youth and experience, flair and grit, creativity and discipline. At Juventus, he paired seasoned veterans like Antonio Conte and Angelo Di Livio with emerging talents like Alessandro Del Piero and Edgar Davids, and this balance was crucial to their success, providing both stability and dynamism. Lippi also understood the importance of having players who could perform their specific roles, whether it was a hard tackling midfielder to break up the play or a target man to hold up the ball. Lippi always had the right tools for the job, and this is definitely relevant today, as in the transfer market where clubs are often tempted to splash out on big name signings, Lippi's approach to squad building is a more valuable lesson in balance and pragmatism. And coaches like Mikel Arteta at Arsenal have shown the benefits of blending youth with experience, but too many teams still prioritise star power over squad cohesion or young promising potential over experience. Lippi's example shows that success is often built on the strength of the collective, not just the individuals. So what can we conclude about the timeless lessons of Marcelo Lippi? So Marcelo Lippi may not have the glamour of some of his contemporaries, but his legacy is undeniable. He was a master of pragmatism, adaptability and man management, qualities that are just as relevant today as they were during his heyday in the 1990s. In a sport that is increasingly dominated by data and systems, Lippi's human-centric approach is a reminder that football is, above all, a game of people. His ability to connect with players, outthink his opponents, and adapt to any situation made him one of the greatest strategists the game had ever seen. For modern coaches, the lessons of Marcelo Lippi are clear. Be flexible, be pragmatic, and never underestimate the power of the human element. In a game that is constantly evolving, these timeless principles are the key to staying ahead of the curve. So next time you see a team grind out a 1-0 win, or a manager make a bold tactical switch, remember they might just be channeling their inner Marcelo Lippi. And who knows, with a little bit more of his wisdom, they might just achieve his greatness as well.